So I'll be honest with you, when I walked into the Air Force Wounded Warrior program, I knew very, very little, and I was probably one of the folks in the crowd that confused it with the Wounded Warrior Project. Having known so little about the Air Force's Wounded Warrior program prior to, I didn't know to necessarily make this mandatory for our airmen because I didn't know much about it myself, and I had some misconceptions myself. Now that I've had this outreach opportunity, I'd love to make it mandatory for our airmen, and I would love to incorporate our spouses and our families so they can understand the caretaker side of resources that are offered within the Wounded Warrior program, because it's too important for them not to know that this is a resource that we have if they're wounded, ill, or injured, both visible and invisible scars. There's a lot of things that grabbed my attention as a leader about the Wounded Warrior program briefing, but specifically it was just the two stories from the two airmen ambassadors. Very, very different stories, but they showed the spectrum of the participants in the program from being wounded in combat to having a brain aneurysm. What was very touching too, it was a first-term airman, the brain aneurysm story, and then a fellow colleague of mine who I had no idea had been through such traumatic events earlier in his career. To not only talk about the physical scars that are often present, but the invisible scars as well. The thing that inspired me the most about the briefing is just their ability to talk about how they suffered prior to and the growth as just people after receiving some of the treatment and taking advantage of the resources through the Air Force's Wounded Warrior program add to a help-seeking culture that is just so important in our Air Force today with all the mental health issues that we have, given the mission that we're called to do, and one that really puts things in perspective. I think briefings like this really enable commanders to have additional tools in their toolkit, which are so important because the resources out there are plentiful, but when you're not knowledgeable about them, for one, you can't offer those resources to your airmen. So briefings like this, they're great for education. I think they're great for inspiration as well. It shows the importance of community. I also think it's really important because oftentimes airmen don't fully know how to explain what they're going through or feel like they're alone in their journeys. And then when they hear the stories of others, they're able to see that they're not alone and that there are things out there to really help them live their best life. I would encourage leaders across the Air Force to have an ambassador come and speak with them because I think it really empowers them with the knowledge of what this program is all about, the different tools, the fact that you can nominate an airman at any level. I also think it's important to send that message of not only, one, do we not leave our airmen behind, but also when you're struggling with something, we have a commitment to making sure we see you through that and hopefully bring you back into the Air Force. And if not, that we're going to make sure that transition to the next chapter of your life sets you up for success as best as we possibly can. And as a commander, I'm always thinking about retention. And when you paint that picture for our airmen of what it really means to be a part of an organization like this, it's unlike any other. And I think it's just really important that our airmen, as well as our leaders, know that and can communicate that. So as a leader, I would love just to say thank you to the ambassadors that had the bravery and courage to stand up and share their stories. They do it with such grace and humor. As I mentioned, one of our ambassadors is a sitting squadron commander. I had no idea, and I think oftentimes they provide an opportunity for connection. And I will never look at this airman, my colleague, my friend, the same, but in a much, much better light because he opened up a window to talk about things that I often think about, and you just don't have avenues to have those conversations. And so I thought it was really, really brave and the best type of vulnerability. I really believe as a leader you have to show your vulnerability to offer venues to connect and again prove to your airmen that you're not alone in what you're going through, and when you do struggle we can help get you assistance and help because we owe you that. And as commanders, you know, our airmen don't serve us, we serve our airmen, and so it's so important in sharing these messages with our airmen on what our commitment is as a service. And that you can really make a difference one story at a time when you have the courage to share that.